Crackheads, we are back. It is Friday. That only means one thing. It's the Craic with Petesy Carroll. That's right. Not the most exciting week in the world for MMA. Let's be honest. It should have been the magnificent debut of the GFL. We could have been watching Dylan Dennis v. Tony Ferguson this weekend, but we're not seeing it. We're not seeing anything. That's an issue to me. However, we do have a lot to talk about. Ilia splits ways with his longtime coach. It all seems very amicable. Is it, though? We're going to talk about that in the show. We also have to talk about the situation that has emerged from an Evloev tweet where he's saying, I'll see you at the next one, Volk, which has led a lot of people to be like, well, I'm hearing that Volk and Yair are going to fight again. And a lot of people are upset about that. So we're going to talk about this. We're going to talk about Islam Makhachev's beef with Chael Sonnen that's emerged seemingly out of nowhere. Of course, we have to talk about the John Jones situation again. That's 6 months, maybe 7 months of conversation about this, similar to the whole Ilia and Islam situation we had for some time. I also want to talk about Dana and Turkey. I mean, I told you on the Ariel Helwani show, I love me some drama, and I feel like I'm going to get it. I saw a publication in Europe reporting that, Dana has been cut out. I know that hasn't been confirmed anywhere else, but we can speculate. As Ariel refuses to do, it is my favorite thing to do, so I hope to do that today, and plenty of it. Also, obviously, want to talk about GFL, what we missed out on this weekend, the collective joy we shared through their fantastic music, Protect Your Neck, whoa, all of that stuff. We could. That's beautiful. It's like 2025's Stairway to Heaven, as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, I've been talking absolute brown for about 2 minutes now, so let's bring in my lovely boys. We got two very, very handsome, two very, very excellent writers here today. We have the editor-in-chief, Shaheen, Al-Shatti, one of the greatest of all time, and Ben Fowlkes. You know him and love him. Look at that lovely facial hair that he definitely manicures, and we'll ask him about that later. Shaheen, Al-Shatti, how are you getting on, sir?
I'm doing wonderful, man. It's good to be back. I haven't been back for a bit, and you bring me back on the deadest of all dead weeks, so I feel like you're maybe sending me a message with that, but I get you. It's okay, Pete. I still love you.
That is not the case whatsoever. And Ben will be the first to say that coming on one of these weeks is much better than making your debut on a week where we had to discuss a massive court proceeding regarding Conor McGregor. I think you'll agree, Ben.
Yeah. See, I see it as a vote of confidence for you, because he's saying, like, we don't need, big news items, the obvious things to talk about. We can get by on personality this week. And so let's get some people on who can help carry the show, even if there's not like pressing business really in MMA that we absolutely need to talk about.
There you go. How do you feel with that, Shane? I actually said to Chuck this week, and I was like, listen, man, you're not quite bringing to the table what we need, so get the hell out of here.
Go back to the minors, get your game right, dial your curveball in, and then we'll have you back.
He flew all the way to Colorado to scream at the Denver Nuggets. That's what I heard. He couldn't come in this week. He got on a plane, went over there to pick a fight with one massive man called Jokic. Boys, I love you very much. So glad you can be here. As we said, it's not a very busy weekend. Shane, not a busy weekend versus a really, really busy weekend. Which is more stressful for an editor of a combat sports site?
That's a great question, Pete. Probably the not a busy week. No, it's the busy week. The busy weekend is more stressful, because not a busy weekend, I can actually have an actual weekend to like be a human being, but that's not happening anyway. There's multiple pro wrestling shows that are pretty big this weekend. There's like a boxing Josh Taylor fight that's big. So like, I'm definitely working. You guys aren't, but like, I'm still doing stuff. So not that weekends off don't exist for me.
Overrated weekends off, Shane. Do you know what I mean?
Needs it. Who needs it?
Who needs time off at all? Lads, we better get talking about this MMA stuff. I spent the first 10 minutes of last week's show discussing dreams I had from last year. So I feel like we should get to the subject matter a bit quicker this week.
Was that not a hit? I feel like people enjoyed it when you got out your dream journal from 2024 and started just reading full quotes from it.
Jordan was like, we should make this a weekly segment. I was like, I don't know about that, man. You know what I mean? I have to look my missus in the face, and some of these pretty X-rated. But anyway, We had a tweet from Movsar Evloev, the man who was in the position that we would describe as the Leon Edwards or the Bilal Muhammad, or the Joe Benavidez, perhaps. Or no, not quite Joe Benavidez. But anyway, he's in this situation where he is definitely the best contender in that division. And it seems as though he is not getting his date with the champ once again. Here he is with a hashtag Abu Dhabi here. It says, if you are a UFC fighter and believe you are the best in the world, then you have fight every fight they throw at you. No risk, no reward. See you guys in July. It's on. Do we have? There we go. This is the one here now. He tags the great Alex Volkanovski. He says, thank you, champ, for trying to fight me. I will fight in July and you fight in September. Hopefully, we both win and we can meet in December. Now, the situation that we got from this, boys, is right. Obviously, Evloev isn't fighting. But then a lot of people start doing the old mathematics. The old, well, he's fighting in September. Big show in Guadalajara. All types of trouble with the old venue over there. But we had several people, including one, Jamie Theo from Bloody Elbow, saying, as per sources, the fight Evloev has accepted is a 5-round co-main event against Aaron Pico, a big fight in the featherweight division. And from that, we also had people deducing that it will be Volkanovski v. Yair 2. Yair Rodriguez, a man who lost to Volkanovski at UFC 290, then went on to lose to Brian Ortega in a fight where I've always described it as he snatched defeat from the jaws of victory, and then he got the decision win over Patricio Pitbull. Now, we don't think we have this quite confirmed yet, but a lot of people have been saying this is the way it's going to go. Tell me, boys. Shaheen, I'll start with you. What do you think of the idea of Yair getting this second crack at Alex, if this is what is going to happen?
You have like a crack jar? I feel like you just slipped the word crack into this show like an extraordinary amount of times, where it's like that little hidden gem you see in the movies if they like say the title of the movie and like everyone gets all excited, like, oh, they said it. I feel like you need to have a little crack jar behind you. We can just throw some money in. I mean, this is dumb, right? Like, this is pretty dumb. I've heard the same reports. I've heard the same rumblings of Movsar versus Aaron Pico is sort of the direction they're going right now, which on its face, like, that's a great fight. I actually really like that fight just as a whole in and of itself, like separate from everything. I love the idea of just throwing Aaron Pico to the wolves in this and seeing if he can survive sort of like the toughest part of the featherweight division right now. But man, like, who's asking for this, right? Like, you just went through the resume for Yair Rodriguez. That Alexander Volkanovski fight was not close. That was a blowout, and he hasn't really done anything super impressive since. I understand like the UFC's tendency to just go with the schedule rather than what sort of like makes sense on a level of just like, you've earned this, and like, sure, we're gonna go to Mexico, so let's get the Mexican guy to headline. But like, man, I don't know. This feels like more of the same for 2025 of just not giving us the fights that feel like they sort of should be made, and instead just handing us stuff and saying, deal with it. I don't know. Is anybody excited about the prospect of this rematch? Because it doesn't do much for me.
I know Ben is. Look at him there. He's frothing at the mouth.
I agree that this is another instance of the UFC calendar dictating what happens in title fights, which is fine for the UFC calendar to dictate some stuff, like who ends up on what card to some extent. It does feel like when it comes to title fights, that's when we ought to be able to be a little bit more selective, because clearly if this is the plan where we're doing Volkanovski and Yair again for the UFC Noche thing, it is purely because we want to have somebody for local appeal, which, I mean, arguably you do not need to sell tickets. You just need it for the kind of identity of the event, since you really want to brand this one a certain way. You go to a market that you don't go to very often. If you have UFC fans there, you're probably going to sell it out, just regardless, just by telling them there's a UFC event coming. That's probably going to be enough. But you want to have it there so you can say, okay, yeah, the UFC Noche event, Yair Rodriguez is going to get another title shot. But yeah, it wasn't particularly competitive the first time. It's not like we've seen Yair Rodriguez do stuff since then where you go, he cannot be denied. The man has a clear mandate and it must be given another title shot. That just hasn't happened. And so, especially when you have Movsar Evloev sitting right there, where you're like, there's a fresh challenge and a different kind of challenge. Would be interesting to see how Volkanovski stacks up with him. That does seem like the obvious one. And it is hard not to see it as the UFC has had several big fights that just sort of fell in its lap. I don't even know if this one is something you would call one of those big fights, like Volkanovski versus Evloev. It's not like that one is going to be a record-breaking pay-per-view, but it is going to be the one that makes sense. It is going to be the one that feels like it ought to be next, given what the state of the division. But between that, you had this prospect of Ilia versus Islam. You have the just maddening prospect of John Jones versus Tom Aspinall. And so far, the UFC is going over. It's just making other fights and just being like, good enough, buy it or don't. We don't care. And especially when, as Ariel likes to say, MMA finds itself in a little bit of a recession right now, you can't afford to miss these opportunities. You don't have that many big fights that you can really make. And so when you have them, you ought to go ahead and make them. And it seems like that we're just going like, all right, well, like the same way Evloev is doing in his tweet there, where he says, I'll fight in September. Or you fight September, I'll fight in July. We'll meet in December, which nobody's going to point out. We're asking Alex Volkanovski, gentleman of a certain age, to have 3 title fights in one calendar year.
Holy shit. Yeah.
But you're also just sort of assuming certain outcomes. And you know what happens when you mock the MMA gods that way? They will ruin your plans.
Mount Science, of course. But it's kind of like, this is happening so often that, and I know we always go back to it, like what the UFC were meant to be, right? Like, we make the fights that boxing doesn't. Like, this is flipped completely on its head with the age of Saudi and everything like that. But it's just happening every week now. And is there a way that like the UFC are like a victim of their own success to the point where they're like, we don't really need, we can just do what we want. Like, fuck what everyone else thinks. Like, this is just good for us. And I've seen Yair fights in Mexico, and I know Chuck has been to his fights in Mexico, and he's a big deal there. The crowd really love it. I think Chuck was at that fight with Jeremy Stevens that got ruled a no contest, and he said it was wild. But it's also part of me that's like, I feel like Yair has been given so many opportunities to like be this guy, and he just hasn't done it. Like, the Brian Ortega fight is like one of the craziest examples of like, they're trying to set up this Ilia fight. It's going to be massive for the whole Latin America, Spanish speaking fan base. And somehow he loses that fight. I still don't know how. Like, he was, I think he knocked Ortega down like 3 times in the opening minute of that fight. And here he is getting another opportunity. Is this going to eventually hamstring the UFC? Like, does this eventually hurt them lads, or is it just this is what it is now? Like, this is what the fans want. The new fan is all on board.
You sweet summer child, Petesy. No, nothing's gonna hurt the UFC, man. Like, it's exactly what Ben said. Like, all of this is dictated by the schedule, but also it's just like none of it actually matters, because the UFC just says, hey, we're going to Guadalajara. That's selling out regardless. Like, that, like, you could have me versus you headline that card and still, like, full arena, they're going to get stupid money for tickets that are incredibly overpriced at this point. Like, it's just kind of how it works. Like, what you said about Yair Rodriguez sort of getting all these shots, I think that's a great point to make. It feels to me like he's almost like the Colby Covington of the featherweight division right now, in the sense of not like the personality, right, but more of just like, we just kept spoon feeding Colby shots, and eventually Colby's going to take one of those shots and become a champion, and he's a popular guy, and maybe that'll work out. And it just never worked out. And that's sort of where we're at with Yair. I mean, the man is 3-3 since 2020. Do you know how many wins Movsar Evloev has since 2020? It's basically his whole UFC run. Like, he's what, like 9-0, 7-0 since 2020. Like, it's ridiculous. At some point, an old buddy of mine at MMA fighting, Jed Meshew, used to use this phrase, and it always rings true with me. At some point, you got to eat your leafy greens. Like, Evloev versus Volkanovski is not the title fight we particularly want to see. It's not the title fight that's going to get everybody excited. But if this is a system with rules in place, and sort of not even rules, but just sort of like a loose framework in place where that if you win, you advance, and that sort of meritocracy to some degree, at some point, you got to just get this guy a title fight. It's Bilal Muhammad getting the title fight. Like, no one wanted to see that really, but he needed it. And eventually we got it, and we got through it. And now we're on the other side of it. You can't eat pizza and ice cream all day. You're gonna like, it's gonna be fun. You're gonna have a great time, but then all of a sudden,
Right,
you're not gonna have a great time, and just like things go awry if you're just generally indulging in that way. At some point, you got to eat your lettuce, you got to get some kale, you got to get some spinach, and you just got to stomach through the salad. This is our leafy greens fight for featherweight. Featherweight's a really great division right now. I'm very curious to see, especially with Aaron Pico coming in, like what comes out on the other side of this towards the end of the year. But to get there, you have to get the guy who's actually earned it and who's been putting in the work. You have to just let him get a shot, man. I don't understand the hesitation here.
Yeah, I saw Chase Hooper's tweet on this where he was just like, this is the UFC's last ditch effort to delay or at least, maybe put a roadblock in the way of an Evloev title reign. And there might be something to that. I mean, I think it's mostly like, hey, we're going to Mexico. We want a fighter who's a big deal there. But I don't think that they're in any rush to get to a point, especially if they think like he probably wins the title, maybe holds it down for a while, and maybe it's not that fun, and maybe it's not that popular for people. So I think that is a possibility. It's all going into the calculation, perhaps, but it is. You're right that if you're asking like, hey, is the UFC when they're missing the opportunity to make some of these fights, especially the big ones, like Ilia and Islam and Tom and John Jones, is it hurting the UFC? Like, not in any way that they actually care about, which is the money. Like, the money's still flowing in. They're still just like upping the ticket prices to see what's the absolute limit of what the market will bear. They might have run into a little bit of an answer when they went to Montreal with a kind of a weak overall card, but it's going to change depending on where they are in the world. And then they're coming up on a new TV deal where they're going to see a huge increase one way or another. And you also, more than any other sports organization, have a split that favors ownership to a monstrous degree. It's the dream of every other sports organization where the owners get to keep 80 to 90% of the money. That no one else gets to do that. And so it doesn't really matter that much. Like, even if you lose some fans, I've said for a while, they long ago stopped trying to be in the growth business, the growth phase of MMA, where we're trying to recruit more and more fans. They're in the cash out phase. They're in this like pure revenue phase. And maybe one of the worst things that happened to the average fans viewing experience was when the UFC figured out, here's how we can offer up a kind of gradually worse product, but make more money doing it. And that's what you see here. Like, this is kind of the end result of that, is that they don't have a real incentive where they go, we got to make this fight. If we miss out on this fight, we miss out on money that we need. They don't. They're going to make the money either way.
That's a
I will say, just to add, like, as fight fans itself, right? Like, not media, just speaking as people who watch this stuff week in, week out, who have done this, who've basically committed our entire lives to this, right? Like, selfishly, I want to see Alexander Volkanovski fight someone new. There's very little time left in one of the greatest fighters of this era's career. Like, the fact that he has been able to squeeze out, I would safely call this his post prime, right? Like, we are not getting prime Alexander Volkanovski anymore. Whatever the fact that he's been able to squeeze out what he's been able to squeeze out in this post prime version of himself, we don't know how long this is going to last. Like, it was impressive enough that he even reclaimed this title and beat a guy like Diego Lopez, who's on such a hot streak. I don't know if we have two Volk fights left where he's at this level. I don't know if we have one. I don't know if we have three. Like, whatever that number is, why are we wasting it on a retread that wasn't that interesting of a fight the first time? Like, Movsar is a completely different style than Volk has ever fought. Just historically, it'll be more interesting for us to be able to look back and say, wow, Volk, he was able to get past all of these tests of this era, all of these tests of this era, and then he was able to take out a few guys from that last era too, and all these different stylistic matchups, and he was able to figure out it all. And rather than that, we're just going to, again, walk back a fight that we just saw a year or two ago that wasn't close. Like, to me, this is just not interesting. And I again, we're doing a lot of speculating here. So, like, maybe this doesn't happen and we all look dumb. But if this is the direction it goes, it's just so par for the course for 2025 right now.
It's also like, just the final thing I'll say about this is, like, Evloev, I get it, right? He's a grappler. He's not like he's not a guy that's going to kick someone's head off and make 1,000 highlight reels, whatever you're going to say. But I feel like, to some degree, Merab has proven that, like, you don't have to be to eventually get that kind of fan support. I remember John Wood, I interviewed him for Uncrowned before the Umar fight, and there was this sentiment that the UFC want this new Nurmagomedov, And he was like, no, Merab is the new Nurmagomedov. Like, they just don't understand yet. And I think eventually they get this kind of momentum. And I think Evloev could be a guy like that. Okay, it's not quick. It's not the type of thing that's going to set the world on fire immediately. But I mean, I agree with you guys. I hope we're wrong, and I hope we get this fight. But the man who dethroned Mr. Volkanovski and who has now left the division, Ilia Topuria, it seems is not fighting Islam Makhachev. Well, he isn't. He's fighting Charles Oliveira in the main event of International Fight Week. But there has been a story here about a split with his long-term coach, Clement, obviously in Alicante. He was on Submission Radio earlier this week, and I believe On Air Jordan has the video for us. Is that correct, the great On Air Jordan?
Is real. He go to live to Madrid, and I have my own project here with my brother. Ilia go to Madrid. He have his own gym in his house, and he want all the energy on him, you know. I feel, you know, always this is not good for the sentimental thing, you know, but it's the life. We go with him all the journey, and now he grow and he want to fly away, you know. We are very proud to do all the way with him. We are very proud for everything he do, you know. I want everything in his life continue going well, you know.
And that was, of course, Submission Radio. And we do have some further reporting on this from Marca, and that's a nod to how big Ilia Topuria is. Marca covering this. Marca, one of the biggest European sports publications of all time. Obviously very famous for their football coverage, but Ilia Topuria, due to his massive stock in Europe, has become a regular in their columns. And as far as Alvaro Colmenero has tweeted here, it says, Marca explains that both parties live in different cities and their multiple professional projects prevent them from collaborating in the same way they have always done. It was incompatible that Ilia lived in Madrid and the coaches, with many more students, were in Alicante. For quite some time, Ilia's work was formed by his own brother Alex, Javi Clement, who was not related to the Clement brothers. And he added Manny Tanvanet and Matthias Ribeiro, prestigious BJJ black belts, to his team. The separation was already tacit, but unofficial. Sorry, lads. This is the thing, right? We've seen different versions of this before, and one was McGregor, which was quite worrying. Where it's like McGregor didn't so much as leave John Kavanagh, but the focus became very much about Conor McGregor. Conor McGregor is leading this camp. And I have a quote here I'd like to read from John Kavanagh, because I can remember reading this and just having such a bad feeling. It was before Donald Cerrone, who we all thought that Conor was going to beat Donald Cerrone when they fought in 2020. But this worried me when I heard it at the time. This is what John said. I believe this was the Mac Life, because that was the only interviews they were doing at that time. With Conor's fighting IQ, with Conor's understanding of the game, really, this training camp is about us all getting out of his way, provide him with an environment where he gets different looks, different feels, and support him, where he wants the training camp to go, with intensities and listening to him, where he has days he wants to push hard and days where he wants to slow down. It's not so much about us coaches sitting down to game plan and then filling Conor in. Conor knows more about fighting than the rest of us put together. Now, I'm not for an instant saying that is Ilia Topuria's attitude here, but we've also seen Francis Ngannou leaving Fernand Lopez, a guy who introduced him to MMA, and then he had great success under Eric Nixick. I'm wondering, are any of you getting that feeling? Like, Ben, are you getting a feeling that this could be a negative thing for Ilia Topuria in terms of he's after taking this big leap up to 55? It seems that we're all poised for this moment where he's going to become an even bigger superstar, and suddenly we're seeing, things look a bit different there over in Madrid.
You know, it gives me a little bit of concern for him just because things were really going well. You can't do a whole lot better than undefeated and beating two of the GOATs from your last division. It's hard to be more undefeated, you know? So whatever you were doing, the instinct is to say, just keep doing that. It's going great. I guess a lot of the question for me depends on what is the new situation going to look like. I think where you really see historically fighters get into trouble is if you're the boss of your own training camp. Like that John Kavanagh quote about Conor McGregor, that was clearly Conor is the boss now. Like everybody, and this has been an issue for Conor McGregor just in his entire life, but it also played a big part in his decline as a fighter. Is like you're surrounding yourself with enablers essentially who all see you as the money faucet. They don't want to do anything that's going to turn off the faucet. They if they're faced with a situation where they're gonna be like, hey, I need to tell this guy some stuff he needs to hear, but he might get mad and tell me to get out, and then I'd lose my spot at the trough. They're not gonna do it. And a lot of people should have done that with Conor McGregor at a lot of different points, both in the gym and in his personal life, and they couldn't do it or they wouldn't do it. Or if they did do it, they were gone. And so you look what happened there. I think we saw it honestly with BJ Penn at points in his career, and who knows what's going on with him now. But there were points, especially when we got a good look at BJ Penn preparing like for that second GSP fight, that big one, where there was a lot of indications that BJ was the boss of his own training camp. Nobody could tell him, hey, we need to put in this kind of work today, and that's just how it's going to be. And so I think a lot of fighters struggle when they get to this level where they can call their own shots, and maybe the shots they choose to call aren't the best. I don't know if that's the case for Ilia now, because especially some of the stuff you hear there where he's saying like, hey, we're in different cities. And especially if he's saying, hey, he wants to have a training camp built entirely around him. Me and my brother have this gym business here. We can't just like leave our entire business to focus on one fighter. But if I'm Ilia Topuria and I am already at this point in my career and I'm fighting to get to an even bigger point in my career, I absolutely want a training camp that's all about me. I like the way boxers do it. I don't want to be a guy in the gym. I want to be the guy. The entire team is structured around me. The practice sessions are all structured around helping me win this fight. That is the way it should be. That I totally agree with that approach. It's just like, who are you going to bring in to help you with that approach? And you're kind of running out of time. Like the fight is in like a month. And so it did make me wonder, did you get to a point where we were trying to set up our training camp? It wasn't going well because of our conflicting schedules and geographic challenges and stuff. And so then we said, oh crap, we got to scramble and put together something different, because that would be really concerning, because you're not going to have too many more weeks of really hard training at this point. You got to have the work done here pretty soon.
What do you think, Al-Shatti? Is it a more of a Francis Ngannou, or is it more of a Conor McGregor? I mean, I feel like the fact that it's happened, in a way, Ben, it is him kind of saying, I am taking control of this situation. Do you know what I mean? The fact that he is saying, like, you guys stay in Alicante, I've built this shit in Madrid. It kind of, and look, I could be wrong. I'm often wrong. But it kind of makes me feel as though he's already kind of taking control. What says you, Al-Shatti?
It's interesting you throw Francis in there, because I don't feel like Francis is a good comparison for this situation, right? Like Francis changed camps after he lost, after he was quote unquote exposed and et cetera, et cetera. And also he changed camps, I would say, to an upgrade, right? Like we all have immense respect for Eric Nixick and what they do over there in Vegas. Like that, I would, no one would ever criticize anyone for going over there and working with Eric. And obviously it worked out in the way it did. Francis has been unbelievable since. This to me doesn't feel like that scenario. And at least on its head, like when you first hear this story, right? I think the knee jerk is to say, oh, well, that doesn't sound like a good idea. That type of thing, just to be really dismissive of it. But I will say one thing about Ilia that I have come to really appreciate, and one thing that this man has been very consistent with, is, oh, look at that. All right. Come on, fly. He's just landing on my big bald head.
He's just trying to get a word in,
Hey,
he wants to weigh in.
Respect. One thing that I have really come to appreciate about Ilia, and that he has been consistent in, is just his complete flaunting of the MMA gods. Like, just not giving a single shit about what, the MMA gods may think about X, Y, or Z, or just like how things historically have worked out. Dude put in his Twitter bio that he was the featherweight champ far before he was, like in the lead up to that fight. Like, dude just flaunts it at every chance that he possibly can. He's saying all kinds of reckless stuff before he's about to fight these legendary fighters, things that could very easily be clipped and thrown back at him if he gets knocked out or he loses. And it just comes out, it ends up working out for him every single time. This to me feels like another example of that, just like going up to lightweight, ditching your title after you have beaten the two most legendary fighters of this current era at featherweight, and then going up to lightweight and trying to do that felt like another version of this, of you're just trying to essentially do the Conor. Like, there are so many flauntings that are happening that, again, I have immense respect for the man to continue the gimmick, because this is just the latest. And hey, if the first 20 times that he has basically towed the line with the MMA gods and said, "Come get me," and they've just been unable to, then if he's able to do it again, man, more power to him.
Yeah, no, you're right. He is breaking trends.
He's a habitual line stepper.
He is. I love that. Rest in peace, Charlie Murphy. McGregor and Ilia, though, there is parallels between them. There's obvious ones, and I know that Topuria has shunned them. Like, he has said, like, I'm going to do more than this guy, and he's obviously well on his way to do that. He's going to do it at 55, but I do feel as though he's got that aura to him. Like when you be around this guy, like you can feel him enter a room. He's like, fucking, I am Ilia Topuria. Fucking bow at my feet, and you're going like, oh shit, I'm doing it. I don't know why I'm doing it. But that's just my concern, because it all happened so fucking quickly with Conor. It just was like, remember, like at one stage we're all like, this guy's like a fucking monk, the way he's talking about movement, and he has Ido Portal out there trying to hit him with the pool noodles, and we're like, what is this? And then he knocks out Aldo, and we're like, this is amazing. And then suddenly it was just like, what is going on here? And I'm cautious. I don't want Ilia to go down this path, because obviously McGregor's, when he was in his pomp, was such a fun story, such an amazing thing. Maybe I'm biased because I'm Irish, but what do you think Charles Oliveira is feeling about this, Ben? Do you think he's going, this is quite tasty, actually?
Yeah, I'm not feeling discouraged if I'm Charles Oliveira. I'll take any little edge I can get, even if it's just a psychological edge, because Ilia is a tough guy to fight. And so if you're telling yourself like, hey, the guy is changing horses in midstream, his training camp maybe not going that great. He's also going up a weight class, so he's going to be dealing with bigger fighters than he's used to. Who knows if his power translates the same way? I mean, he does have a fight in the UFC at lightweight before early in his career, so it's not like he's never done it. But you can tell yourself, like, things are pointing in a direction of, like, if he were to lose this one, we would all look back and be like, look, those were the signs. We saw it. He made some bad choices in the lead up to this fight. Maybe he shouldn't have got up and weight at all. That's absolutely what everybody will say. So if I'm Charles Oliveira, I go, sure, yeah, change camps again. See if Ido Portal will come hit you with the pool noodles, whatever. And see, that's the thing too, Pete. When you say, like, with Conor McGregor, it all happened just so fast, it was going great, and then it wasn't. My instinct is to respond, was it though? Was it though? Because there were some indications. Like, and it was honestly one of the things people really enjoyed about Conor McGregor and his way up was he was like, I'm larger than life and I'm living larger than life, and come along with me on the journey. I'm going to spend all my money as soon as I make it. I'm going to be as much a celebrity as I am a fighter, and I'm going to be living kind of wild and out of control. And then I'm going to pull it together and go in there and fight. And it just got to a point where you weren't pulling it together anymore. You were doing all the other stuff and not the fighting stuff anymore. And I don't feel like we've gotten that vibe from Ilia the same way. Like he does seem to sort of enjoy the training and the lifestyle of a fighter more. And that's one thing, I remember talking to Trevor Whitman about this once, where I was like, construct for me your ideal fighter. And I thought he was going to list physical traits, and he started off with a bunch of just like psychological traits where he's like, I want a guy who wants to be in this gym all the time. I want a guy where I need to tell him to go home. Like, I need a guy who doesn't want to party. He's not just like not partying. He does not want that kind of a life. And it seems like Ilia is a little bit more in line with that. So I don't worry that this is the beginning of the behind the music style decline where it all goes wrong for Ilia Topuria. I just think you're going to go in there and fight Charles Oliveira. I know it's not Islam, but it's no slouch either. If you're not sharp and if you're not ready for that, he could surprise you.
For me, McGregor's downfall, and I agree with what you're saying, is quite clear. I think it's Mayweather, and then we're just slowly watching the unraveling. Then, like, it's just how much becomes public at that stage, right? Because it's immediate, like a month later, he's in Dansk watching Artem Lobov v. Feely, and he drops like a homophobic slur, and from there it's just like hitting a guy in a bar every week. It's like something, you know what I mean? So I do think you're right, though. I don't get the same kind of partying atmosphere. Like I don't recall any video of Ilia Topuria being kind of inebriated or anything like that. Perhaps that video the day before he fights when he's had one glass of wine and he gets really giddy when he's weighing in. Like that's probably the closest we've got to that. But yeah, it's interesting. We'll have to see how it goes. We can come back and lambast him for it, obviously, after Oliveira, if he does manage to beat Ilia, we'll use this as a stick to beat him with. Until then, we will remain down the middle on the fence. The man we all hoped he would face, Islam Makhachev. He is, of course, going up to 170. He's going to fight Jack Della Maddalena at some stage. Ali Abdelaziz says is not having it in Perth, which, of course, JDM wanted. He said that on a recent appearance on the Ariel Helwani show. But Islam, he's in a strange kind of beef here, and it's a man who is no stranger to beef, guys. It is Chael P. Sonnen, medium rare, of course. I like this in a way because Chael, as a fighter, can say things that a lot of guys online who are throwing shit at Islam because he didn't take the fight, he can just say shit. And as a fighter, he can get away with it. He has said that Ilia is a coward. This is an act of cowardice, him not fighting Ilia Topuria. You have an undefeated #1 ranked world champion who's chasing you down. You are so interested in getting away from this guy that you leave your belt, said Chael. Islam, in response to this, via X, he took to X, that's for you, Chuck Mendenhall, chasing hype and money is not the same as chasing greatness in sport. But average athlete who built his way to the top with cheap trash talk won't understand that. So please sit and watch how others doing it, Uncle Chael. Damn. #double champ. This is a bit of a weird
great tweet from Ali Abdelaziz there. Good. He managed to get the diction and to kind of like mimic the writing style a little bit. Like, not bad.
Do you think Islam's even aware of this, Al-Shatti? Do you think he even knows?
Do you think he knows he has a Twitter account?
Has beef? Yeah, I'm sure to some degree, right? I'm sure it makes.
I wonder what I'm going to say this time.
I just always picture the meme of Ali at like 40 phones.
What a strange one though, right? Like, I think Chael loves this shit. Like, obviously, I
think.
I admire it.
He's gonna squeeze like 12 YouTube videos out of this, my man.
This is his vocation at this point, and honestly, he's good at it. Like he like just the same way he did for trash talking your way to the top. Remember after he had so much success with this, and you'd see fighters try to come along and try to do it. Like he saw like Roy Nelson, just like, yeah, he's gonna try to do it now, and all they succeeded in doing was making us appreciate that Chael's actually good at it. Because he makes it look easy. He makes it look like there's nothing to it, but it's not that easy. And he's doing the same thing now where it's like he's made himself into this brand where, like, if you go to his YouTube page, it's astounding just the volume, the amount of videos he's cranking out, and he does not need much. And those of us who are in like sort of the MMA related content creation business to one extent or another, you got to respect the hustle because he's just throwing stuff out there. He does not need too much prompting, and he'll just jump on it and be like, let me make a video about that, see if that works, and just cranking stuff out, sitting in his little chair in front of his little, like, the bad guy sign. And honestly, it reminds me, like, seeing him pick this particular fight and do it this way, I was reminded of like when I used to teach rhetoric writing to college students, and I would try to drill in their heads, look, if you're gonna write an argumentative essay, pick a thesis statement that somebody could at least plausibly disagree with. Don't pick something where you're just like, murder is bad, because that's boring. Like, it's not going to be a difficult argument to make. Nobody's drawn in by seeing you make that argument. Pick a thesis where we might see it and at first go, I think you're wrong, or I don't know about that one, or I'm pissed off that you would even make this argument, because that'll draw people in. And he's really good at doing that. And here, that's pretty much what he's done. I think that I don't want to say that there's a kernel of truth to what he's saying, but I kind of see the point that he's making. He's saying, like, look, you're trying to do the thing of saying, I'm going to challenge myself, go up a weight class, be the smaller guy. I'm done fighting guys my size or smaller guys coming up to lightweight. I want the respect of going up there and people saying, hey, he left his own weight class and went to a higher one. But I only decided to do it once I saw who was champion. Now, the details of it are, I didn't want to do it when my friend and training partner was champion. So, like, that's what he seemed to be actually waiting for, not, kind of Randy Couture waiting until Tim Sylvia was the heavyweight champ to be like, actually, I'm back. Not, or even George St. Pierre waiting to see Michael Bisping as middleweight champ and be like, yes, now is the time I would like to be a middleweight, not when Anderson Silva was champion. Now, like, you could make the argument though, because you're just like, you waited until the guy who had been like the number 5 dude at welterweight, where he became champ, and then you very clearly waited until that moment to say, now I want to go up a weight class. And this guy who is coming up, who is an undefeated guy, everybody's really excited about it, I'm going to choose not to fight that fight and instead fight this fight. And if the reason you were doing it is legacy and respect and all that stuff, it's not money, because you'd make more money with the Ilia fight. If the reason you're doing it is because you want us all to be really impressed, I don't know if we will be. I don't know if you're going to get that. I also think that's a dumb thing to chase in this sport, because people are going to say what they're going to say, and you can't really control it. And then look at this fight you find yourself in with Chael Sonnen, who's going to be a lot better at talking into a camera than you are. And he's got all day to do it. He doesn't have anything else he needs to do.
You're a great Chael Sonnen tweet whisperer. Do you know that? That is like, this is a profound breakdown of what Chael said, to the point I'm like, holy shit, okay.
Chael and I have known each other a long, long time. So I've had an opportunity to get acquainted with it. But I mean, that's the thing. You know what they used to say about like, don't pick fights with people who buy ink by the barrel full. Like, don't get into a beef with the New York Times or something. Like in MMA, it should be like, don't pick fights with people who have nothing else to do all day but talk shit on social media and YouTube. Because that's exactly what they want. You're gonna have to go to the gym. You got other stuff you need to do. He doesn't. He doesn't have anywhere else he needs to be, and he's very, very experienced at this point.
Oh, damn. He is taking him down, Al-Shatti. I mean, do you agree with that sentiment? That, like, obviously we all wanted Ilia in Islam. Do you agree with the sentiment that it is a kind of a Bisping GSP situation? Like, he's jumping on an opportunity to get this in a kind of an easier way than it would have been, let's say.
I don't think I would agree with that sentiment, because is anybody like, do we view Jack Della Maddalena in the same lens that we viewed a Michael Bisping as champion? To me, Jack feels pretty legitimate as champion. Is Jack a lesser challenge than Bilal Muhammad would have been? Because I don't know that anybody would really say that. One thing I am curious about, Ben, and I want to dive into it. You said that you don't think people will. This fly is just obsessed with me.
I've got one too now. Fuck's sake, he's here.
It's growing everywhere, man. Ben, you said that you don't think people will be impressed if Islam is able to pull this off. Do you think that?
Yeah, I think that. Well, because I do think that Jack Della Maddalena, he looks on paper maybe like different than Ilia, because Ilia has the undefeated record, and we love that. Yeah. But Jack Della Maddalena's losses were his first 2 fights, and they didn't lose any. So it's like, that's still really good. We could almost give him credit for being undefeated, because he's been undefeated basically since he got his feet under him in this sport and figured it out. But you know how people are, they want to see that, and if they see anything else, then you're not the guy. But I do think that because he was, for one thing, the plan B title challenger, it was not really supposed to be him in the first place. It was supposed to be somebody like Shavkat. And we said, all right, we can't do that, we don't want to put it off, throw Jack Della Maddalena in there. And then he goes in there and he wins, looks great in the fight, and wins, but still I think he has not built up that sort of reputation at where people naturally think he's the guy at that division. He's the champ. Everybody knows who like, if you're stopping MMA fans on their way into a venue and you're saying like, tell me who the champs are in each UFC division, this is what I could see him stumbling on, because he just hasn't been there at that point long enough yet to really hammer it into people's minds that like, if you went up and you beat Jack Della Maddalena for the title, you really did something. Like, I think it's still just new to people. Not saying that he doesn't deserve the respect as champion. I think he's a legit fighter. Like, we've seen him. He's looked really good. He looked really good in that Bilal fight. But I think in people's minds, especially if that's why you're doing it, is public perception, I could see a lot of ways that you don't get that kind of payoff that you hoped for. And you would have been better going for the much more predictable economic payoff against Ilia Topuria.
It's interesting because it's interesting to me, because like, I like the way you're sort of laying things out. It's just, I don't know. To me, I've never felt that like Islam was doing this for public perception per se. to me, it's always felt like something he's been trying to pursue to differentiate himself from Khabib Nurmagomedov, right? Because that's what's followed. That's the ghost that's followed him his entire career, even before he was this guy, even before he was the pound for pound king and this unbeatable champion. Like he was Khabib Jr. He was the next coming of Khabib.
He was Habib's friend.
Yeah. He was Khabib's friend, longtime friend and training partner, as I wrote in 1,000 different articles qualifying him, right?
He's Khabib's +1 to the party.
Yeah. And so it always felt to me that the welterweight thing was his version of like, okay, what can I do where I'm not in the same boat? Essentially, like how do I get to a different set of waters than Khabib and differentiate myself a little bit? Because he's also been consistent with this. Like when Leon Edwards was the champion, he was calling to fight Leon the entire time. Like the whole Volkanovski era happened when Leon was champion, and every time Islam was like, "Hey, if I do this, I wanted to be the next one to move up," and he just never got the opportunity because lightweight. It's so hard to give that grace to the lightweight champion because there's always just 20 lightweights coming up who want that challenge, right? So to me, like I can understand from like I am more disappointed than anyone probably to not get the one fight that I think we all wanted of Islam versus Ilia. To me, it's you know, the person who it sucks most for is Ilia because the 2-fight streak that guy is on right now, and I said it at the time, like
yes, that's right,
knocking out Max, knocking out Volk. That's one of the greatest 2-fight streaks of all time. And if that man went up and then did the same to the #1 pound for pound fighter, a division above, like record breaking champion, that's the greatest 3-fight streak in MMA history. And like that's a crazy thing to have under your belt as your resume, as just this 3-fight run. So he's getting shafted in that sense because Charles Oliveira, as much as I have immense respect for him, he's just not the type of guy who, I don't know that we could say that, right? Like if he goes up and knocks out Charles, are we calling this the greatest 3-fight run in MMA history? I think that's a little bit thing. Yeah, it's just not, it doesn't have the same cachet. So in that sense, like that, I am so disappointed in that for that aspect because I'm such like a lover of the history of this game. And to me, everything in a historical perspective is the most interesting version of all of this, of like, how does each of this fit with what we've already seen before? So seeing something new, seeing something crazy like that would have been really awesome. But you know,
well, that's what I think hurts him a little bit is the contrast with what Ilia is doing. Because Ilia said, hey, I beat one GOAT from my division to claim the title, knocked him out, which nobody does in this division. Then I took on another GOAT in my first title defense, another guy nobody knocks out in this division, knocked him out. So what do? Do I stay home as champion and keep defending the belt? No, I want to go up to the next division where the dude who is the champion at that division is scary. And the dude who is up there seems like he probably beats me in most people's eyes. You know, they were going to look at that Ilia versus Islam fight and favor Islam, whether they liked Ilia more or not. They were going to look at that matchup wise and be like, that's going to be tough for you. And that's a huge risk to leave behind your championship in one division that you could have held down and, you know, pretty much cemented yourself as the greatest ever to do it in that weight class with a couple more title defenses. And instead, you're going to go up a weight class against a guy who seems super tough, who everybody regards as one of, if not the best pound for pound fighter in the world. And you specifically picked him and said, give me that guy. Like, that's really impressive. And that's like, to see one guy trying to do that and the other guy not only denies us that by leaving the division, but is like, I'm going to go up a weight class. I'm going to do the same thing, but against the guy who does not have that kind of cachet in people's minds, a guy who people were probably going to expect me to beat, honestly, like even with the difference in weight, like that contrast happening at the same time, side by side comparison is what makes it seem, I think, to people not only like a disappointment because they're not getting one of those fights, but a little less impressive than what Ilia was trying to do.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do think JDM's great too, but it, like, you know, it isn't the same thing. He hasn't defended the belt. I don't think, as much as Bilal kept telling us, I don't think he was considered. We'll look back and think that was one of the greatest welterweight champions of all time. I think we'd all agree with that. Just before I move on, though, I'm of the opinion that fight is gone forever. Do any of you disagree with that? Like, I don't think Ilia and Islam will ever happen now. I think people keep saying to me, like, well,
I think that's premature. I think that's incredibly premature. Yeah. I mean, here's the scenario, right? Ilia goes up, knocks out Charles Oliveira. He's the lightweight champion. Islam goes up, loses a hard-fought decision to Jack Della. What's Islam going to do then? He's going to go back down, right? Then it's Islam versus Ilia.
Yeah, I don't know. I do understand the path to it, but I just feel like
when the UFC don't make things, when they're right there, it just won't come back around again. You know, like
I don't know.
It just
How many times have we seen it in the sport where we do eventually get that super fight, but
It's just
5 years too late?
Yeah.
Like I could see that. I think that there are a number of different ways that you work your way back to Ilia versus Islam. I don't think it's like a now or never kind of deal, but
it will
now
never
was
feel as
the
important.
time.
That's the thing, is you'll lose forever with a feeling in the meaningfulness of what this fight would have been, right? Because in that scenario, Islam goes up and loses. He's not the same Islam in the way that we look at him, right? Because we look at him now as this unbeatable force, this immovable object. He's this guy who just has torn through everybody. The moment you see the first crack in that armor, it's never the same. You can never think of somebody in that same way.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. I don't want to do another lap of they need to strip John Jones. I know everyone's having their turn this week. I must have seen 700 media guys being like, hey, what the fuck is going on? Al-Shatti will tell you, I was doing it back in February before it was cool, and everyone called me a wanker for it. Woo! But John Jones, fucking biggest own goal of all time, obviously, with these tweets this week. Like, basically, like, I'm fucking retired, guys. Oh wait, no, I'm not retired. Who the fuck said I was retired? What the fuck are we talking about here? I looked it up today because it's something that was discussed. I believe Rick, who is our audio engineer for today. I mean, the famous New York Rick. Oscar Losev not here. Him there, slugging it in the back. Amazing. Thank you, Rick. But I think it was Rick who was who first brought it up to me that, you know, Jones could actually become the longest reigning heavyweight champion in UFC history. Like, which is a big deal, right? I think it's Cain Velasquez. I think Cain Velasquez holds it at the moment. On August 17th. He will become the longest reigning heavyweight champion of all time with the UFC. One title defense, of course. What I wanted to
I'm
ask
calling
you,
that a half a title defense. We're not calling that a full title defense.
Exactly, right? But he will. Like, this will go down in the history books, I believe, if this happens. What I'm asking
did you
you
see
guys,
though what when ESPN tried to put out that tweet basically saying like, oh yeah, look, he could have the longest title reign in 2 weight classes. They got community noted.
No, because they called it an undisputed. They said it'd be the longest undisputed heavyweight champion. And it's just, you don't actually know the meaning of words if you think that's the way to frame that. Because they got
dunked on so much by Twitter users for saying it that they had to like append a note as if somebody has just like made a factual error that cannot be allowed to go unchallenged. Like, so that's how like strong the pushback is against really giving him like full credit as heavyweight champion at this point.
which leads me to my next question. Will he make it to August 17th then?
I mean, is that what he's trying to do? Is he just trying to run out the clock? And
well,
so
I don't know what else he's fucking trying to do at this stage. Like, it's absolutely
Neither do
mental.
I.
He's sniffing a lad's hair on the back of a moped. Like, what the fuck is going on?
He is purely doing whatever the F he wants and just laughing at all of us. That's what this is. He is just enjoying watching everyone run in circles with their hair on fire about this.
The thing that kind of is baffling to me is like one of the many tweets he put out that seemed to just sort of like worsen his public image this past week was when somebody was like, you having fun with a belt before you get stripped? And he was like, LOL, do I seem like I care about that kind of stuff? Yes.
Yeah, dude.
Yes,
yeah, you do.
You first of all, you care enough that you're tweeting at randos about like that's the thing is like it feels at this point like the way we're finally getting any sort of clarification about where he stands in his career is like him responding to like, you know, Conor is the GOAT for 2069 on Twitter. Like that seems like how we're going to finally hear him be like, yeah, screw it. I don't want to be champion. I don't want to fight anymore. And he's always been super image conscious and like legacy conscious. That's why he wanted Stipe. It's why he specifically called for Stipe and stuck to that fight even when the public support for it had completely eroded. He wanted that name on his resume because he thought that's going to make me look better because I'll look like I beat everybody at light heavyweight, and then I went up and beat the guy who had the credentials to be called the greatest UFC heavyweight champion of all time. I beat him too. Even though you beat a semi-retired version of him well into his 40s, it just didn't look like he was even in the game anymore.
Semi's doing a lot of heavy lifting there. Semi-retired, what do we? Come on, it's why he didn't fight Chael Sonnen like a decade and a half ago, or however long ago that was. It's just this is with this man's thing. His entire reign is just like this hyper awareness of manicuring whatever kind of legacy that he thinks that he needs to have, and it's just,
and he's doing tremendous damage to that now because it's like if you don't want to fight anymore, and if you don't want to be heavyweight champion, if you don't want to do the Tom Aspinall fight, like that is your prerogative. You get to make that choice. If he's like, hey, I did all I needed to do here. I got enough money. I'm getting into my late 30s now. What do I need to fight these young hitters for? Let me get out of this game and go live my best life on the back of a motorbike in Thailand. Fine, do that.
But like,
it looks like a good time. It looks like
not
a
only
good time.
fine. Like, that's totally acceptable, dude.
Yeah.
No one would argue with you. You've been going a really long time. None of your peers from your era are still doing this, really. Like, not a single person. If you, after he beats Stipe and then he just retires, not a single person would have faulted him for it and just be like, okay, yeah, cool,
we would have sent him on his way with blessings. But like when you're holding up the heavyweight division and you're seeming to just sort of like enjoy the trolling of it, and it's one thing to troll us, like, you know, the fans and the media, fine, whatever, you know,
we deserve it.
But like Big Tom don't deserve this. Gas Hands Tom does not deserve you like holding up the prime of his career just so you can be like LOL at all you guys. I'm just messing with you. Like if that's what you're going to do, then fine. Give him back the heavyweight title. Go play around in Thailand, do whatever you want, and have a great time. And honestly, I think that what would end up happening there is if he did say like, "Hey, I'm not doing it. Here's the heavyweight belt back. So long and thanks for all the cheese." The UFC would move on very quickly. Book Tom Aspinall versus somebody. Everybody else would move on very quickly. John Jones would be shocked at how quickly people move on. And he would hate it because he does really care about being regarded as the greatest and about what people say about him and being thought of that way. And especially if he exits on this right now, it's going to be part of the narrative that people are going to say, you ran from Tom Aspinall. That's why you ended your career was, you know, like the big homie Chuck Mindenhall said in his great column this week, you turned legacy into a game of keep away. And that's going to be a thing tacked on to the end of the resume there for John Jones. And I think that he would hate it. And I think he would end up coming right back.
Yeah. Just to me, it's like, can you imagine if this was flipped? If this was John Jones on the other side of this, is John Jones is essentially Tom Aspinall in this situation. And you could go a couple different routes with this, right? Whether John Jones wanting to get to Shogun Hua and is just like Shogun's like, yeah, I'm good. I'm gonna keep. I'm good. I'm just gonna keep doing my thing, and just did this perpetually for like 2 years straight, wasting, you know, the youthful prime of whatever young prime years of John Jones. Or flip it the other way. One of the many times that this man got stripped of the belt, Daniel Cormier has the belt, and John Jones is trying to come back to fight Daniel Cormier for the belt, and the whole time Daniel's just like, nah, I'm good, dude. I don't need this. I don't need I'm having a great time. I'm releasing videos of me doing all this stuff on the motorbike in Thailand. Like, I'm just really enjoying my life. Like, can you imagine the level of anger and frustration in public just venting we would see relentlessly from a man as petty as John Jones? That dude would be tweeting every day about how Daniel Cormier is the paper champ, Daniel Cormier needs to fight him, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Like, that would be, he would not handle this in the way that Tom Aspinall is handling this, essentially. So it's just like, what are we doing, man? Why are we doing this? Like, Chuck nailed it of just like at some point, like, John's gonna be John. What are you doing, UFC?
Yeah,
like this is legit. Your Tom Aspinall could be like an all-time great, and if we just lose 2 or 3 years of prime Tom Aspinall because of this, like, you're never getting that back.
Yeah. Plus the thing that John Jones said, where he's like, I told the UFC my plans, and if that's true, if he told them some stuff and they've been continuing to tell Tom Aspinall, like, I don't know, we'll have something for you by the end of the week. They've been continuing to tell us, no, we're confident we're going to get this fight booked. And meanwhile, John Jones was telling him, no, you're not, at least not anytime soon. Then that's kind of indefensible. Like, why not just move? Like, I guess you thought that you're just going to wait him out and he would change his mind, but the time has come. Everybody's just sick of it.
We've seen that when Habib retired.
Yeah.
And like Habib retires, I can't remember what exact month it was. Like, it was late in the year. It was like September, October, right? And then like he didn't actually get stripped. We didn't move on until February, that title didn't get vacated until the next year. Like, it was
Dana was taking him out to dinner up and down the Las Vegas Strip trying to talk him out of it.
It's look, I talked to a few people within the camp. Like, it's fucking like Tom is not he's not like a big, you know, glitzy glamour guy. Like, it's getting frustrating having this guy going through the motions in training when he doesn't have a fight, and it's been frustrating. You know, like, he hasn't really had a proper. Everything's been thrown last second to him when he has a fight these days. Like, this is, we think, the greatest heavyweight of this generation. Like this coming generation, he's going to rule the roost for a long time. It's really fucking with a guy doing this to him, like messing with an athlete doing this to him. I think he inevitably gets stripped. And the most frustrating part of that, I think Tom fights Gan, probably wins, and then Jones straight on Twitter. I want to come back now, and it's going to be a whole new troll, a whole different thing, and that could put him on ice again for a very long time. Just want to hit two quick things before we go.
I will just say, if that's the outcome, because I'm with you. I think that there's zero chance we get this fight at this point this year. It's very clear what John Jones is doing here. If that's the outcome that we end up with, where come July, the UFC just comes out and says, hey, we couldn't get it done. Tom, you're the champ. And we just wasted basically a full year to do nothing to end up in the same place. That's fucking inexcusable, man.
Yeah, I do, but I genuinely believe that's what's going to happen. Absolutely. I wouldn't even be surprised if we get to August 17th, they give him like some kind of a tweet or something. You know what I mean? Oh, well done, John. And then he gets stripped. But just two quick ones. Dana and Turkey, still not quite resolved here, boys. Turkey put out a tweet there a few days ago talking about Sella will promote this. We always thought Dana was going to promote it, which could be still a thing because Sella works for TKO. Here's Turkey. We have confirmed the promoter for Canelo v Crawford will be Sella for Riyadh season. The broadcaster we have not decided yet, but the date will be Saturday 13th September. More details soon. As Ariel described in the show earlier this week, it was meant to be the Friday, so it would not compete with the UFC's event in Guadalajara, venue all over the gaff, as we know. I have a feeling, and I think we all said this from the jump, that if something was going to happen here, it would be just too many cooks in the kitchen, two massive egos here. And if this is a thing, we don't know is a thing, it could get very, very interesting. I just wanted a quick tally from you guys. If you guys are with me, or do you think I'm over-egging it, or do you think, as Ariel suggested to me, that they're trolling? I don't. I think this is real, and I think it's about to get juicy, boys.
Just real quick, I have to address this because this guy's blowing up the chat. Bless him breaks out there is saying Tom Aspinall we haven't lost 2 or 3 years, wasted 2 or 3 years of Tom Aspinall. Tom Aspinall became the interim champ in 2023, my man. 2023. That is how long he has been the interim champ. He has been the interim champ. Interim in 2023. We are like almost halfway through 2025. He's out there saying Conor wasted 2 years of Michael Chandler. Like, Michael Chandler wasn't the champ, my guy. Not the same thing. These are not the same things whatsoever. I'm sorry. What did you ask?
I know. And I said Conor wouldn't fucking fight either. So just listen to me all the time, boys. I've been nailing this shit. If they're from Europe, I'm all over this shit. But sorry, we're talking about Turkey and Dana. Are they on the rocks, essentially? Ben was about to hit me with his take here. What do you think, folks?
I think it's entirely possible that you get two people at that point who are used to being the head guy in charge, and maybe they don't work well together. Maybe that they run into some hiccups there. It also seems like the whole thing of TKO's involvement in boxing at this point, like I go back to listening to that shareholder call where they went out of their way to be like, we're just taking some money from the Saudis to promote the stuff. This is not a venture that we are investing in. We are not like starting a new boxing promotion. They're starting a boxing promotion and they're paying us to come along and do the promotion part of it because we have experience in that. And so that seemed like always the level of involvement and attachment that they wanted, and they did not want too much more. And so if you get into that and, maybe there's some disagreements here or there about when or how to do it, I could easily see that they are like, well, hey, look, this wasn't ever our thing to begin with. It was your thing that we were just collecting a check to be part of because, we'll take anybody's money if they've given it away. And maybe they don't see it as that big a deal. So I could absolutely see that. I'm sure they don't love the counter programming aspect of it, though. That doesn't help. So who knows what's going on there?
I feel like, you've toned this down. I'm getting ready for a war of words here. And you're just going like, nah, just a quick sidestep. Tell me, please, Al-Shatti. I'm going to get some juice out of this, haven't I? I want some fucking juice.
I mean, who could have seen this coming? Who could have seen this? Two men who are extremely rich, one maybe much more so than the other, but both of whom are just extremely used to owning the show, doing everybody do what they say, and just really manicuring whatever their product is to the nth degree of their own vision. Not getting along. Didn't see that coming. This is really quite mind-blowing stuff. No, man, I mean, I don't know. Yeah. If this is how this ends up, it is a very predictable outcome. But also, there's so much money involved that I could see that, they end up making it work and figuring things out. But it is quite funny that it took a month? Like, how long did it take before this fell apart for whatever this introductory version of this was going to be?
Didn't make one fucking event, the boys. Jesus Christ. Final one. GFL is meant to be this weekend, and I'm a bit sad that it isn't.
You're the only one.
I'm so sad. I'm so sad.
Come on, man.
The amount of traffic that Dylan Dennis versus Tony Ferguson would have done would have been twice the amount of traffic that the last UFC pay-per-view did.
Yeah, well, like, this is what I'm saying, right? Like, it would have been one of those moments, Ben. And I think we all know, like, we would have all been watching that. Do you remember the draft? Do you remember the fun? Like, X for one night just came back. It was like, oh, like a warm hug. We're all like, yeah, what the fuck is this? Collectively just ridiculing what we're watching. We had the fantastic song. Do we have that, please, on our Jordan? All AI, all in black catsuits. It's come on, one of the greatest songs. It's right up there with the IFL one, Ben. Come on,
Don't you bring that up? Don't you bring that up?
First of all, did the column. That's blasphemous. It's not at the.
You did the column that week, and then it happened, and I was like watching it, and I was like, "Is he watching this?" I was tweeting at the time, "Holy shit, is Ben Fowlkes seeing this? This is insane!" And then it's just gone. A whimper. Dylan Dennis v. Tony Ferguson. For all the reasons why it's disgusting, it was also just so fucking MMA. I mean,
it's beautiful. It was a beautiful thing.
Yeah, but I'm gonna quote Al-Shatti here and say, who could have seen this coming? I mean, it was always the most likely outcome that this just wasn't going to happen at all, and maybe the best outcome, because a lot of these fights you were essentially going down to the senior center and being like, do you have a little bit more brain damage left in you? Because we would like to try to profit off of it. We won't, but we'd like to try. And to have some of these fights not happen, I don't know if you can look at any fights and you'd be like, we are all poorer for not having seen this fight at this particular time. That's nothing on there that we needed to see.
That's ridiculous.
We would have finally found out if Dylan Dennis could beat Tony Ferguson on an 8-fight losing streak. Come on, Ben. That was a big news item for me.
There was like a decade where I made my money being the number one Tony Ferguson mark in the entire industry. I still maintain prime Tony Ferguson beats Khabib. I don't care how many you tell me I'm wrong. Tony could have won a fight, dude. We could have seen Tony win a fight. That's all I needed.
He would have been lifted up like a god. Again, we would have been like, oh my God, he did it. Tony Ferguson did what everybody wanted to do for so goddamn long. But it's not happening. And you know what? Just on the brain damage point that Ben made, that was insane that like they were given testimony in the class action lawsuit, like Vanderlei Silva. Yes. And we were on shows going like, this is truly disgraceful. And then GFL a couple of months later, like, and Vanderlei's back this time.
Fabricio.
Yeah, Fabricio was like, yeah, I've got a brain tumor. I'm showing some signs of TBI. And then like months later, they're like, and he signed to the GFL, and was just like, but I don't see how those two things go together. So yeah, no, the human spirit in general is probably better off with these fights not happening.
But we are worse off, because I will say I agree with Petesy in the sense that like one of the most fun aspects of covering a sideshow sport like this is the nights where we can all sort of collectively watch something together and just sort of point and laugh or point and gawk or just basically like experience some really weird shit together. Like we have seen, we have those at times over the years, and they're always so delightful. And this would have been, it feels to me like the really ultimate version of it, where like we probably were never going to get an event, but maybe we could have at least gotten one event, and one event to always look back at it like, hey, remember when that was a thing for a second? And we would have had such a great time, such a great, miserable, weird, awful time doing this all together and just watching this on Saturday where there's nothing else going on in the MMA world. And everyone would have been paying attention whether they liked it or not. Really, really missed out on a beautiful thing here.
Getting a bit emotional listening to your Al-Shatti, to be honest. Oh, fuck. Listen, we don't have it. It's a weekend of stuff. Well, what's on? There's the Taylor fights on this weekend, the UK. There's what wrestling is on, you said, Al-Shatti? Maybe I'm going to check out some wrestling this week.
Well, if you read our website that pays you, you would know that WWE has an event on Saturday Night's main event, and AEW has one of their big pay-per-views in actually my neck of the woods in Glendale on Sunday. So
Are you going?
I am going.
Is Raimondi going?
I don't know.
I thought you'd link up. I thought you'd like form like Voltron for these wrestling events. We're gonna have to talk about
lives in
Raimondi's book
Georgia.
coming out.
Yeah, he moved to Georgia to be an Atlanta Falcons writer.
Oh yeah, Jesus. Yeah.
I know you're not an American, but Georgia and Arizona are very far apart, my friend.
I genuinely wouldn't know that. I don't even really understand the Irish map if I'm being completely honest with you. But it's one of my flaws.
I do, having gone there. You can get to anywhere in a couple hours. That's what I learned.
That's true. That is very true. Chuck keeps on trying to plan this road trip around Ireland. Like we got to do it at some stage. All of us. We should all do it. It would be absolutely magic. But the weather.
We can do it by lunch. Like it's not even that hard.
Well, listen. Maybe one of these weekends when MMA takes a collective breath to see where we are. We could do it then. It is one of these weekends this weekend. AEW and WWE, whatever Al-Shatti just said there. Go and check them. We love them very much. Al-Shatti, thank you for coming back. We love you so much.
Hold on. Yeah. Okay. I was going to say, we have a super chat.
Every time it shocks me, Jordan. Here we go. Brett, $5. Mini tournament. Volk v. Yair 2, Pico v. Evloev, and after Volk and Evloev both win, we do Volk Yair 3. Nice.
Had me in the first half. Had me in the first half.
Very, very good. Do we have any more there, Jordan? It's just the one. Oh, shit. Alexander Hurst, 5 UK pounds, the Queen's English money. If Islam moves up and wins, but then goes back. All right, sorry. I wasn't thinking there as I was reading that. If Islam moves up and wins, but then goes back to fight Olives / Spanish, he gets stripped again. Also, Jones leaves UFC, PFL scoops Ngannou. Jones, listen, as great as that is, and I do believe in my heart that Ngannou is going to pull off some type of stroke here, where that's going back to the UFC or something else. I just don't see I don't think the PFL can put on a Ngannou fight. So if it's going to happen, I think it's got to be in the UFC. I think.
Yeah, do they have the money left to make something like that? Although this is the thing though about these champ things. It's like at least Ilia was very clear. I'm leaving featherweight behind. Don't want to or feel like I can't make the weight anymore. I'm leaving that belt behind. Here it is. You guys fight over it. I'm going up a division. And with Islam just being like, I want to go up and basically prove a point. Are you going to stay there if you win and defend that belt? Because we get into that same question all the time where we're just like, if you just want to go up there and win one fight, and that fight is for the belt, you're kind of just screwing up 2 divisions in the end. You know, that's not great. So that's a fair point there.
2 things on this. One, I'm now going to refer to this fight as Spanish Olives because that just feels real nice. Like I like what you did there.
Place around the corner makes great Spanish olives, and I go there for happy hour.
It's just it rolls off the tongue in a very good way. Number 2, gentlemen, do we think, because like obviously like I don't think it's gonna happen, but if Francis did come back and we end up, this John Jones saga ends up with us just getting Tom Aspinall versus Francis as like the ultimate consolation prize of just like, oh wow, I didn't expect this, but this works for me after all of this. And that fight happens and it's huge. And then, you know, one of these guys knocks out the other. Do we think that lessens the chance that John Jones essentially sees all of this attention being showered upon whoever wins this? And like all of this of like, does John Jones see all of that and then have a higher chance of being like, okay, screw it, I'm going to do this. I can't have all these people talking about how great Francis and or John or Tom is. Or does that, the way that fight plays out, very violent, etc., cement the fact for John Jones of like, nah, I'm good. I don't want to fight these dudes.
I think he would hate the attention and the enthusiasm that we would have, because imagine in this world where there's a lot working against this possibility, but that we laid out where Aspinall versus Ngannou happens, people would get so excited about it they would forget John Jones's name and
immediately,
and he would hate it. He would hate to see it. It would basically be like, you know, you're intentionally showing up somewhere you know your ex is going to be with a beautiful new woman on your arm just because you want her to see that you're doing great, you know, like that.
But then everybody else at the party goes to that same person's like, dude, do you see how great Ben's doing? Like, what the smoke show that this guy brought?
Yeah, like that's what you would be doing. And John Jones is exactly the kind of person it would work on 100%.
Okay, so nagging John Jones is how we get.
Mm-hmm. Right. He is not the kind of person who'd be like, I'm happy for you. I'm glad to see you living well. I wanted good things for you all along.
He's
I
like
hoped it would
burning
be
your
us,
shit.
but it's not, and that's fine.
Fucking throwing water in your PlayStation 5 and shit. You know what I mean?
Now that feels like that's straight from lived experience, Pete.
Listen, that's all we've got time for today. Oh my god. I think that's gonna fucking happen, boys. I know, call me crazy. I think Ngannou is gonna fucking come in here and Superman this, like, just come in and save everything. Dana's acting like he's the man for a day. Shit goes completely wrong after the fight, obviously. Like, it's complete fucking carnage afterwards. But I have a feeling that might happen. And
the MMA gods would never let us be that happy. They would never allow it.
They will. The great correction is coming, boys. Something. It would have been GFL, but we didn't quite get that. Something is coming. Lads, I love you very much. You're both very handsome and talented men. Thank you for joining me on this show. I was enjoying a picture of your dog, Carl, in the water earlier, Ben. Fantastic stuff. What a dog. What a guy. That's all we've got. It's a quiet week. Go and enjoy yourselves. Thank you to On Air Jordan for making us look and sound beautiful. Thank you to Eric. We don't have Oscar Losev this week. We hope everything's going well there. Eric, you're a wonderful man. Thank you to everyone. We'll be back on Monday on the Ariel Helwani show. From me, Shaheen, and Ben, we love you very much. Have a wonderful weekend.